I like it when somebody gets well and they don't have to take the medication, the drugs, or and stuff. And like I said, I'm not opposed to that. We need it, um, but there's been an overuse of it, and you know, I've turned 70 today, which is also
Happy
my.
birthday.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Going Rogue 2.0 podcast, where we are all about celebrating possibilities. I'm your host, Melissa Myers, and I am here today with Dr. Steve. Dr. Steve is a chiropractor. It's how I know him. And he has more than one treatment skill that he can perform. And I know there's more under the sun, but what we're going to talk about today is the science and the application of applied kinesiology. So, Dr. Steve, welcome to Going Rogue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about how you got into applied kinesiology, because your background is chiropractic.
Yeah, the applied kinesiology is, well, this state has been blessed with a couple great chiropractors. And Dr. George Goodhart developed the practice of applied kinesiology, and he's from Detroit area. And Dr. Versendaal is from Holland area, and he created the technique process of called contact reflex analysis. And when you tie both of those in together, it's just magical stuff happens. And so we do different things. Applied kinesiology and contact reflex analysis, things that we do are all energy-based techniques. And um, we are just basically light energy, vibration, resonance, and my viewpoint is once we find out how to tap into that more successfully, the better results we're going to get as our healthcare industry. A lot of us have, well, we grew up in the pharmaceutical age where, you take this drug for that and this and that. But really, it's all energy. Even back in the Chinese acupuncture and this, and they've actually mapped out energy pathways, and they've in science recently actually injected, say, the meridians are energy pathways, and we'll talk more about that in a second of what we do. But they've injected radioisotopes in those, say, entry points to the meridians. So a meridian is like an energy river for, say, you have the liver, and that flows in a different way in the body as opposed to the kidney and the pancreas and all these other things. But so energetically, they've been onto it for centuries, and so what we do is that's where our interest is at. I've always wanted to, thinking outside the box is a whole lot more fun than inside the box, and so years ago I started in chiropractic. I've been in business for almost 40 years, but I started learning more of these different techniques that dealt with applied kinesiology and energy, and back in the early 90s. And um, one of my first instructors was Dr. Versendaal from Holland, who taught me to do this contact reflex analysis, which was awesome techniques. And we still do it in our office. We call it a different thing. Seems like these things evolve and people put their own names on it and develop a little bit more here and there. But
Break it down for us. What does that mean? Like, why would somebody come into your office, or while they're in your office, discover that this is something that can be done? How does it come about?
well, we look at healthcare differently. So when somebody comes in our office, we on the pharmaceutical end, you're in the allopathic, and it's all great, and thank God we have them. But uh, they look at the symptom and managing the symptoms, and well, say asthma, for example. We'll just throw something out like that. What actually causes it? I mean, they treat the bronchial spasms and this and that, but what is actually the cause of an asthmatic attack. Why are the bronchioles and the lungs constricting, simply put? So with our like contact reflex analysis or our allergy work, we can go in there and determine whether it's a say a pollen or something that might be in the house. Say if, a
Like a
young child,
chemical.
yeah, a chemical. A young child's having breathing issues. One, we look at it chiropractically because the spine, everything comes off there, and it's the wiring to those organs. And if we have an impedance in that area, it decreases the energy. And chiropractic, we call it dis-ease, and eventually it becomes a disease. So we look at that, and I have to put that in it because that's these are all pieces of the puzzle. But then we look further and say, okay, with applied kinesiology or with energy work, we can take a strong muscle. So if somebody comes in, they're having an allergy problem. I can actually there's certain reflexes over the body, so we can look at the lungs, for example. I can place my hand in a certain fashion and take a strong intact muscle. So it'd be kind of like an arm wrestle, just simply put, with the patient, and then I can put my hand over a certain area, say the lungs, and if we have a weakness there where a previously strong muscle is now weak, that indicates an issue. That's an energetic imbalance. So at that point, then we can take, I can look at certain pollens and put those into the energy field. And a lot of this stuff deals with quantum physics too, and that gets really woo, really strange. But
You might think it's woo woo, but if you experience it, you'll see just how very cool it is. It might be woo woo, but it's cool.
yeah, I think Einstein called it strange actions at a distance or something. But so I've been blessed to be able to just using my hands, and it's really kind of weird, but it's sort of like a dowsing, well driller dowsing for water. Which my father-in-law was a well driller, and he did do this for several well drillers in the area. Um, but I can actually do that with my hands when I'm looking for an allergen. So if we find that the lung is weak, and we put these what we call stressors in the energy field. Basically, we have the patient hold a box of um, vials, and I'll explain that in a second. But and we can determine through that whether it's a pollen that's like oak or maple or something like that might be bothering them. And at that point, we can do a process to desensitize them to all that. And again, we're going to go back to all this, so
Yes. Well,
explain it more. But
you mentioned the oak and the maple. So your son, when he was in your practice, I kept complaining that I was getting sick every Memorial Day, every Labor Day, every Memorial Day, every Labor Day. And it was just like this pattern. And when I told him about this after, I'd been noticing that this repetition of pattern, he's like, hang on just a second. And then he was able to narrow down what my sensitivities were. And we had just moved to that house when I started getting sick. And those trees are the trees that are hanging right over our house. It was
yes,
so cool. When he told me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what is over our house. So I have a biology degree. I didn't know if you knew that.
no,
Yeah, I'm finance, but I've got the scientific brain too, and the curiosity behind it. And so it's just fascinating to think about the beauty of modern medicine. And we need that, a broken bone, or there's other situations where we need traditional medicine. But when there's something out there that, I was taking a Zyrtec every single day for years. I don't take a Zyrtec anymore. And if I need a little tune up, I just let you know now, and you set me back on the right path. So I
it's
want people to know that if you've got allergies, because this year in particular, I keep hearing from everybody that, oh, their allergies are so bad. Is there a reason, do you think, that this year is worse than another, or is something else going on that people are maybe more sensitive?
I'm not sure. I think it's just the dryness and not enough rain and the heat and stuff. But it has been bad, and the cottonwoods have been really bad. It looks like a snowstorm around my office, and this is one of the worst years. My story is a little bit with that is oaks and pines used to tear me up, and I went to school down in Atlanta for chiropractic, and it looks like fog down there during the spring because the pine trees are opening up, and it's just and Atlanta sits up on a hill, and driving down south on 75, you can see it, and it just looks like it's engulfed in this fog, which was pollen. And I got really sick when I was down there with allergies and stuff, and that's what brought me to Dr. Versnell in Holland. He says, "Well, you just have an allergy. You need to take 20 of these a day for, you know." And I did what he told me to do, and I got better. But then I learned the techniques of the allergy work, and it I think it stems from actually a Dr. Nabutapad in California, I believe. She was a DO and a chiropractor, but she came up with this and wrote a book called NAET. And like I said, a lot of doctors over the years have taken different people's techniques and improved upon them or made some changes. And so we do a technique we call ASSERT, allergy elimination sensitivity reprogramming technique. A big mouthful. But so my story, oaks and pines used to really bother me. And I'm sitting in a field in my office. I've got 16 acres of trees back there. And my eyes are watering. I'm wiping my eyes. And so anyways, I was taught this technique, and it was oaks and pines. And so what I would do is I would hold the vials in my hand. Now, just quickly, vials are what they sound. They're like bottles of water, or
They look like test tubes.
they look like test tubes, or yeah. And water will hold information, and that's what we're 90, especially when we're born, quite a bit of water, 90% or better. And but it holds information, and it's a beautiful thing. So we have these vials, say, of oak that have the energy aspect of it imprinted in the water, and then pine, the same thing. And what you do is you hold these things. And my process is now I can go through these. We talked about meridians earlier. They'd have like entry points basically. So I can use either a laser, a cold laser, or I do have a little electrical device, hand device that we
A little
just
clicker thing.
a little clicker thing that puts a
Highly
little
scientific term.
puts a little shock in this into those systems when we go at those entry points. So we start on one side, and it mirrors on who started on the right side, and mirrors on the left. So we may have the entry point of kidney, um, um, bladder meridian, large intestine, small intestine, pancreas, liver, all those different points. So we hit these with that spark or the laser, and it's incredible. So we initially test the muscle, and we'll have if you have an allergy or sensitivity to it, we'll have a strong muscle that goes weak once we put it into your energy field. And it's so then we go through the technique, and we just have you hold these, and we'll have you hold them for maybe 5 minutes after we process through all these, or knock on the doors of all these meridians with the laser or the sparking device. And what happens is within 5 minutes, that weak muscle that was that arm or whatever that was weak, and we can use any muscle, but that arm we usually use is now rock solid strong.
That's
And
amazing.
and then and meridians they cycle. So every 24 hours they cycle. I think the large intestine, or the not the large intestine, the small intestine is like 1 a.m. in the morning, and the liver's like 3 a.m. in the morning. So if you're waking up at a certain time every morning, it's something we look at too, because it might be the meridian or something screaming there. But anyways, so 25 hours, you're feeling better. 72 hours, it's like it doesn't bother you. Now, back in the early 2000s, I went with my son with his soccer team to Germany when they had the World Cup there. And so I was there as a team doctor and a host, a parent, and the kids stay with host families, and we stayed in Bonn, Germany, and some hotel, with so the guy I stayed in was the pilot. Stayed with it. At the room was the pilot, and everyone's eyes were watering and tearing up, and everyone was having allergy issues there. So I went across the to the square in Bonn, Germany, in the park, and I swept up, which was a bunch of pollen on and I didn't know what it was, but I took it back and I processed it, as we just talked about, and the next day the pilot and I were 50% better, and the next day, the following day, we were 100% better, and everyone else was still tearing up. Now, unbeknownst to me, I found out that it was chestnut trees, which we don't have a lot here. So I don't have a lot of people suffer, and I don't, it didn't have bothered me before, but that was the big tree in the park. And so we were a lot better. And then I took care of a few of the soccer players that way. But the beauty is I've been able to help a lot of people through the years. And cat allergies. I was having a little harder time with cats, as far as, and then I finally started having the patients just get a little saliva too on a napkin or whatever, and stick it in a Ziploc bag and bring it in, because I can test different things that way too.
Oh, like what?
Well, you can bring some stuff in home that you might be,
So like chemicals in the
yeah,
house.
or I'll have them maybe take a little damp cloth and just wipe out their ducts and the heating ducts in the house. If they start, because wintertime you start closing up and these things are blowing and people start getting these, winter
So every
colds.
night around 8 o'clock, I have a powerful sneezing fit where I sneeze like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
Look at what, maybe like the air conditioning running, like you said, the vents, or I always wonder though, is it something outside? Like, is something happening?
Well, yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
But that's what's fun about this is being a detective and investigating, and just it's. I actually went to one person's house, just a friend of mine too, but we just started, and their child was having all kinds of allergy stuff, and found out that there's a lot of garbage in their vents, and so we
So
had
clean
to
your ducts.
clean your ducts and watch what you're putting on your floors. This person's also having problems with the child, and they were cleaning the floors with some eucalyptus, some junk or whatever, the hardwood floors, and the child's crawling on this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So you just
Well, and our body's an organ and it's absorbing
it's a,
all the time, even if we're not directly touching
yeah.
it, we're just absorbing what's in the air.
Well, and then smelling it,
Yep.
close to the floor there, and putting your hands in your mouth, and so it's just that's the fun part of the job, is just trying to figure things out with people. Now, the beauty of it is that with the allergies, you don't have to take anything. I so like for me, I think I went 5 years without any issues with pine and oak, and I've got big oaks around my house, and then I got to a point where I was getting really stressed out with some things, and I started having some issues come back. I gave myself a treatment, and I was back up online, and I haven't had any issues with it. And I'll sweep up the oak pollen or off my deck and bring it in for some people and test them. But as opposed to what's been done in the past, you don't need all that stuff.
Well, and if we're looking to pharmaceuticals, then usually there's side effects and something leads to something else that's an adverse effect.
I used to take all that stuff when I was growing up. My mom was my sweet little drug pusher, but and all I felt was just numbness, and I really didn't feel any relief. I mean, I felt you just I can remember it just didn't give me the relief that I'm
Yeah.
experiencing now, and it, but it's really going outside the box. I mean, it's really strange for people. Some people get scared with some of this, but it has to do with quantum physics, and the good Lord made us in a beautiful, special way, and we just haven't learned what that is. And once we learn how to tap into those energies, and it's like nutrition. We do the same thing with nutrition. I can go through that, and muscle tests. We call it muscle response testing, is where we test a strong muscle and it goes weak, or reflexes and that. Today we're talking about allergies. Well, um, people can have food allergies too, and stuff that they think is healthy for them, but their body for some reason gets to a point where it didn't want to deal with it anymore, and then you start having joint issues, health issues, and everything like that. So we also, with the same type of technique, we take what we call a phenolic. Phenolics are the component in food that give it its smell, taste, and color. And simply put, so we can see which phenolic, like an allergy, you have a sensitivity to. Like I had somebody recently had a piperin um, sensitivity, and if I remember right, it involved dairy, cheeses, even lettuces,
Lettuce.
and tomatoes, and um, green peppers. So some of that was, also nightshades. People have issues with. So you think those are good for you, but in that person, not so much. And there's salsalinol, which I think is chocolate, and all these things can lead to different health issues. I think salsalinol, if phenolic, can lead to alcoholism and a few other things. Piperin, I think, can cause infertility and um, overweight and things like that. So each one of those um, has certain symptoms or conditions that can be related to them. So we look at that also as part of our allergy work. And that gets to be a little more different because what happens there is the person gets, been eating these foods for a long time, or these, at a certain point in their age, it's starting to become a problem. Well, the gut starts getting beat up because of all this, and then you start with a leaky gut syndrome, where you start things cross the intestinal layer, and that's all supposed to be a closed system, and that can cause all kinds of health issues. Your immune system, a lot of it's built from your gut and all that. So pulling back and trying not to get off track here, but a little bit. But so it's different. So we have to then do the right things to help the body rebuild the gut and the tissues and that. So we have a food allergy, we process it the same way, and then we need to go in and then repair the gut. And I've had some Crohn patients over the years that I've gotten some good results doing that. Um, so it's fun, just kind of.
And it's got to be so rewarding knowing that you're able to help them figure it out
It's
and see that transformation.
let's get to the cause of the
Yes.
issues, and that's why I'm excited about the allergy work and the different things we do, because it doesn't follow the mainstream, and we get results, and yeah, it's fun. And yeah, and we've done different things throughout in other things energetically, and we've done some emotional things and that too, and had some good results with that, and yeah, it's tied all together, with the chiropractic and these other pieces of the puzzle, and it's a beautiful thing.
And what I love about it is it's long lasting. It's not permanent, or it possibly could be permanent, but it doesn't mean that you have to keep coming. It doesn't require multiple repeat visits or an ongoing, like certain drugs nowadays. Once you start them, you basically have to continue. Whereas this is let's find out what's bothering you now, address it, and treat it, and then you can go on with your life and do the stuff you like doing.
Exactly, and it really is the beauty of it, and so medically, I mean, they used to run a medical practice too, and some of the things I looked at, they were coming across medically. They had where you can take care of allergies, and but they take very small energetic components of it, and they microdose you over a long period of time, and I'm like, and I had the opportunity to do that, um,
You went rogue.
well, I went rogue. I just I says, I can make money doing this, but it doesn't feel right. It's not right.
Yeah. Well, I
And
think that's so
because you,
important to listen to your intuition about what does feel right for you. And that's part of the whole idea with going rogue is that it's for you. And, you know, if you're not congruent with something that you're doing, you're never going to fully enjoy it
right,
and be able to share with others.
right. And I like it when somebody gets well and they don't have to take the medication, the drugs, and stuff. And like I said, I'm not opposed to that. We need it, but there's been an overuse of it, and you know, I've turned 70 today, which is also
Happy
my
birthday.
thank you. But I mentioned that because I go in for my yearly checkup, and they say, "Well, what medications you taking?" Oh, I'm not taking anything, and
You're an anomaly.
they're all surprised with that, But but things like this is the techniques. I'm a product of the product, and um, yeah,
Well,
it's
and what
fun.
we have to do, I think, as patients, as consumers out there, we have to be curious and just go, okay, am I liking how I'm feeling? If I'm not, let's do something about it. Well, where do I start? A great way to start is asking questions of both types of therapy, traditional and can I call these alternative?
Yeah,
Like these alternative therapies, because every practitioner, I think, has a little bit of a different technique, perhaps. And what might work for you with one might not work with the other, vice versa. But I think also advocating and just asking for help, or just letting your practitioner know, I'm having this situation. Can we explore it?
right.
And then taking it from there. Like, you're not going to know by looking at me what's bothering me. In most cases.
Yeah, no, yeah. Structurally, we can look, but yeah, with these other things, I don't know, and but it's I encourage if you know somebody or myself, just in asking these questions, and it's
It's like a collaboration
and it's
between you and your practitioner.
right, and it's fun. Well, what can this be? And then things that I don't know, I enjoy just kind of trying to do some research or coming up with a plan that may or may not work. I've had some that haven't worked,
But you're trying.
but I'm trying, and
Yeah.
no one's getting hurt from it. So,
Yeah. What
um,
has been one of the most eye-opening or just kind of astonishing uh, results that you've had by using the kinesiology for allergies? Has anything like really stood out to you?
I had one. There's a lot, but a couple. I had one person with cat allergies, and they loved their cat, and they just always it's affecting his lungs and his eyes and things like that. And like I said, cats
Cats are
early
tricky.
they're a little tricky sometimes. And but I think it was a couple treatments, and that's what something I was going to go to when we talked earlier.
Sure.
And he was much better, and was able to. The cat's on his lap now, and he's petting the cat, and not having any issues. And um, to this day, he's still doing well. But going back to what we talked earlier, the beauty behind this stuff is it's long term, and you don't have to take anything. Um, and if there is something we need to support in that, we have some wonderful nutritional things that are natural that don't have the side effects. But for the most part, you don't have to take anything. You're good to go for a while. I have people. I had one patient. She was coming in religiously for a long time. She had a lot of allergies. But we worked with her on a regular basis, over a year's period, and it's been 6 years or better. She still comes as a patient, but doesn't have any near the problems she had before. And so, not taking any medication, and everything's been good there. Um, yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to, but yeah. Well, let me just talk about energy just a little bit too. We deal a lot with cold lasers, light energy
Yes.
frequencies and stuff. I got into that before a lot of people got into it around here, and because of my interest in the different things. But so let me just one thing with the light energy. We use cold lasers, and this one I have is an zirconia laser, and I can dial in certain frequencies with that laser. Like I can dial in for liver, gallbladder, brain, cerebellum, cerebrum, just different things. Okay, so I had one thing that's I found out throughout my training is if a left, not a left, but if a right shoulder freezes up, and you probably heard of people have frozen shoulders, that actually can be a liver issue. And I had one gentleman come in. He had frozen shoulder for over 3 years, an older gentleman. And I said, well, let me try this. So we dialed in the frequencies for the liver and that. I gave him probably a 5-minute treatment and had the whole arm freed up. And, he's been
Wow.
doing very well.
No surgery.
No surgery. And I've had people come in just restricted in their shoulders. Right shoulders or left shoulder is generally heart and pancreas. Left shoulder is like the liver, or right shoulder is the liver and that. And sometimes people have those issues, and I'll just laser the liver and free things up, and then find out they're on statins and things like that, and we have a discussion. And but yeah, that's just the power of what's out there in the energy. And and again, I'll go back to my first opening statement is, once we find out how to tap into this, you know, health is going to be totally evolved, totally different. In my personal opinion, I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a total change in the healthcare industry. So, because of things that I know that are coming down the pike. And so, anyways, but that's
Well, we
where
need
I'm.
changes.
Well, that's where
We need
the
them. It's going to be
health
so
industry's
exciting to
going
see
rogue.
it. They're going rogue too.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I always like to provide inspiration, motivation, education, and activation. So hopefully Dr. Steve has shared with you reasons why you will want to get activated and take action for yourself and go figure out if you're sneezing all the time, runny nose, eyes, skin, maybe you've got an eruption on your skin. There's probably a treatment that is quick and easy and pain free that Dr. Steve can help you with. Also, the education piece of it. I love education. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning. I'm always exploring things through curiosity. So I'm curious what you would advise young people or somebody maybe considering a change of career. They want to have a more fulfilling job. What are the educational requirements to get into this field?
Well, chiropractic is, we need chiropractors. A lot of the old people like myself are starting to retire, and there's hasn't been a lot of people taking our places. So it's a beautiful. Right now, I think it's the best time to be a chiropractor because what we just talked about. Um, you've got to pretty much have to have a 4-year degree or the requirements to get into chiropractic school. So my first degree, I've got a degree in public health, so I know the medical side of things on a lot. And so I've got a bachelor's in that, and then you go into chiropractic school, which is another academically 4.5 years of training there. So we get actually the same education as a medical doctor. I've had 3 years of cadaver lab and cutting on things and figuring out where the parts are and what we need to do. And where the medically, they'll go into the pharmacology and do that. Chiropractically, we jump more into the nervous system. We jump more into radiology and the techniques naturally of how to adjust and nutrition. And I'm thankful that that looks like that's going to be a requirement in the medical field now is to have education nutrition. Because
That's so important.
well, I think Hippocrates said to let food be thy medicine.
Yes.
And I believe that's really
Well, I was just recently in Peru, and our guide said that the Peruvians, when they get sick, they go out to the garden
Awesome.
And he didn't mean like the literal garden, but he meant nature because there's so many neat ways that they know that we don't know. And they have different plants, obviously. Their flora and fauna is different. But yeah, they go to the garden. They look to nature for their healing.
Yeah, and I think that's in my own personal journey. I want to actually learn more about the foods and the healing properties of foods and things like that. Um, yeah, I just think it'd be awesome, and I really think that's where we need to go and get back to nature. And where a lot of us are suffering from inflammatory issues, and a
I
lot of
wish it would be really cool if we could take you into Dollar General and have you do strength testing on people who are handling all of the stuff in there. Because I think every single Dollar General has a smell to it. Like some plasticky weird smell, but then all the processed junk food that's in there.
I look at labels when I shop sometimes, and
You probably
it,
can't buy anything at
oh,
Dollar General.
well, no, yeah, you can't, and it's scary what some of that stuff's in there.
Yeah.
But
So going back to kinesiology and education, do you have to have a degree? Is it a certificate? Is it an add-on? Like how does one get into that
you
as a
you
profession?
can actually get into kinesiology just on its own through courses and things like that. Um, I don't think there's any state requirements with that, but um, being a well-rounded, getting into chiropractic, you got to have your prerequisites, and then you have to go to chiropractic school. A lot of the stuff you learn outside too. I mean,
So it's lifelong education.
when I was in school, I also spent I think a couple semesters nutrition courses because they started a bachelor's in nutrition, and I was heading down that road too. And I goes, so I well, finances are a big thing too when you're in college. So
That's
I
right.
put that aside.
I can help
But
with that.
yeah, but getting outside of it, out of school, it's where your interests are at. And I've studied under Dr. Versandal, I studied under Dr. Ewan, I studied under Dr. Brimhall, and all these other doctors. And Dr. Brimhall was um, big instrumental in a lot of the things I've learned too, because he developed a wellness practice and had all the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, and started learning from him, and um, just just some really cool stuff. So, and you learn a lot of that getting out of school, and it's just so. My personal the best way is to get into chiropractic school, and they've expanded so much too because nutrition and a lot of this other sports, even sports thing. I've actually um, got over 300 extra hours in sports medicine. So I'm actually one of a few people in the state that have a diplomate in sports medicine, and so you can go that way too if you're interested in there. So there's so many ways you can branch out. Is the point I'm trying to make.
So
It's
just start,
just start.
get into it
Yes, and and I'm just going to push chiropractic school because I just really because
as a launching point.
as a launching point because it's a great field. You help people. You don't have to deal with blood and guts, and you'll get the education in all these other areas, and you'll see things and do things you never thought you could ever do. And I've been blessed. I've been well. I'll say it this way. I believe the good Lord's working with me and through me, and I've been blessed that way. And I think for people to get in this field, I think they'll see some of the same things. So, but
Great. I think it's so neat that you're still 70 years old today and excited about your contribution to others. You're able to help yourself, with your own health, with your, well-being. You've had a long career and you're getting not only to help other people live healthier lives, you're getting to improve the quality of lives in their families because when one person's sick, it seems like it affects everybody and so it's really a trickle down effect of helping and having impact. And we talked about nutrition, so I'm curious, what's on the menu for dinner tonight at your household?
It is my birthday dinner, so it's and my son, the chiropractor, is making it, which is good. Actually, it's going to be chicken is going to be the meat, and some quinoa and some things like that.
Quinoa. I love quinoa. That's a big thing in Peru.
Oh,
I
it
had no
is.
idea. Yeah. Yep. Peru has lots of quinoa,
Good.
and it's a superfood.
It is, and it can be prepared in many different ways. And um, yeah, and when my son was in practice with me, he was in practice some time ago, and we started a program called 8 Weeks to Wellness, and where we did blood tests and things like that. And I was actually a vegan at that time. I was vegan for about 5 years, and he's we did a blood test, and he says, "Dad, you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be more of a not paleo, but anyways, eating a little bit of meat, but sticking mainly to the vegan type thing. But I was supposed to have more meat in my diet. And he was worried about me; thought I was wasting away to nothing. But that's um, but anyways, yeah, there's certain body types and certain blood types. You eat in certain ways, and there's that eat right for your blood type. I think there's some merit to that. But yeah, just and I like cooking, so we try to keep things healthy and did a lot of stir fries and a lot of raw stuff when I was vegan, but
Well, and then you just add a little protein now. You can keep going. I,
keep
I
going.
do lots of stir fries or scrambles with, you've got just a little bit of leftover onion or something. Well, that can go great in the stir fry or the scramble the next morning.
Right. My
Nothing has to go to waste.
new favorite is the leeks and especially the wild ones.
So you're into foraging?
Yeah, I've planted some the
Okay.
wild one, but I have a friend that had some at his house that grows wild, and we had some awesome breakfasts and dinners with those things. They're much more they're stronger, and so yeah, it's cooking's fun.
Yes, it
But
is. Well, thank you for your contribution, for what you do in our community, and for coming here today and sharing your expertise and hopefully giving some inspiration, but also motivation to take action. And if you're looking for health and healing, it doesn't hurt to start asking questions, get curious, because then we can celebrate the possibilities that come out of that. Dr. Steve, what is the best way for people to connect with you, follow you, make an appointment?
well, we're at chiropractic.com, or we are actually starting a new adventure, and our new website, or other website, is fruitportdisccentres.com.
Disc?
Disc centers, where we're helping people avoid surgery. And
Awesome.
so I'm part of actually a national group with that.
Okay.
And phone number's 231-865-6545.
Okay. And are you on any of the socials?
Um, I am Facebook and some Instagram.
Okay.
And
The
I think
Fruitport
I'm in
Chiropad.
LinkedIn too, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So check him out there. And you've got the phone number, and all of that will be in the show notes as well. Dr. Steve, thanks for being on the show today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.